Facebook, and we're now recording on Zoom. All right. All right. What day is today? Tuesday. Whoa, already. It's the 16th of February. Man, time is flying by. But it's a great day because I get to talk with my friend again, somebody I've been following for many years and who's inspired me a lot, not only with his playing and performing, but his education. I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot from you, man. And that was before we talked the first time. So, without further ado, I want to introduce my special guest, Mr. Sergio Bellotti. How you doing, man?
Carl, I am doing great. Such a pleasure to be again with you. And, just starting with you telling me how positive was my influence on you even before we have met is certainly something that makes me happy, makes me want to do more, tells me about the power of the message, being able to go across even to places where we have no idea it might go. This
Exactly.
happened before, I'm assuming, with video lessons, maybe on vicfirth.com or other websites, but
Hmm.
nowadays we're streaming live. So imagine, multiply that by the different platforms that we have available. It's incredible. We're connecting more dots, more pieces of the puzzle. So I'm thankful for all you're doing. I've listened to some of the other episodes, and I don't know how you do it, but you must do the right thing because you get so many artists on your podcasts that have so much to say. My heroes, and so many people have been, watching those and get some needed inspiration. So thank you for all of your efforts. I mean, your calendar is like boom, 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 boom. You don't stop on top of your day job. I know that. So
Well,
my kudos to you.
thank you. You know, I didn't intend for it to be like this exactly. Um, I did intend to talk with people who I really respect and appreciate, and I've learned a lot from, and who've made a big difference out there for a lot of people, like yourself. But it's gotten to a point where it's almost like a daily thing, and I don't want to. My concern with doing it this way is that an episode doesn't get enough attention or views. But what I'm finding is actually the traffic's been much higher when people know that people are coming on, and then they go to the playlist. I actually came up with an actual name and got the domain name, theplayerswebcast.com. So right now, if they hit that, they're going to go to the playlist of like 40 different conversations, about 20 which were done in the past 2 years up until January, and then another 20 that have been done this year. And it really started hitting a lot this month. Uh, Instead of twice a week or once a week, it started to be actually, it's like every day. I didn't plan for that, but it is. I feel it's helping because now I get more people coming back because they want to see you, and then they see you, and you might mention names today, and they'll say, "Oh, that person's gonna be. We got to check it out because Sergio said." And so I think it's a thing that helps feed each other. And I'm glad
Right.
it's working like that because I didn't want anyone to feel diminished, like they're just one of a number, because that's not how it works, man. You know how it is, and I'm rambling, but I'll be done in a second. There's so many people you admire and respect and have learned from, whether you know them personally or not. There's so many beautiful players and musicians, no matter what instrument. It's like, well, I just want to get inside of your brains. I'm going to get inside your brain again today. It's
Absolutely.
so for me, it's a real honor. It's a real honor. We have some people watching: Jacob Redman, Chris Spagnuolo from Canada. Hello, Chris. Thanks for tuning in. There are others, I just can't see who they are. So, anyways, now that I'm done rambling for a minute, this is part two. It's our second one. So, who knows? We could have many parts in the future. What the heck?
Absolutely. The way
There's,
I see it, I mean, it's 1 o'clock in on the East Coast. Regardless, it's always lunch break somewhere. It doesn't really matter what time you do them. And I
Hmm.
know when people have lunch or breakfast, they have conversations, right?
Hmm.
God knows how many conversations every day, how many powerful messages, how many insightful discussions that, if we could be birds and be places, but the reality is that nowadays we can,
Hmm.
and like you said, maybe you can't watch this live at this particular time, but they'll be there,
It'll
and
be there.
we're connecting the dots. We're creating a larger network of people. As far as I know, everybody can be part of it, whether I'm on camera or someone is on the chat wanting to ask a question. Every voice can be heard, and so it's a beautiful thing. It's lunchtime somewhere, and we can all have lunch together and talk and hear our voices.
That's true. This technology and all that's been really cool. The live thing is really, it's been wonderful for getting engagement. So speaking of that, by the way, if anybody, we don't have anyone on Zoom with us, but that's fine because usually we get way more on Facebook. So I'll just say for people right now on Facebook, if you have any questions for Sergio, just type them in the comments. I'm monitoring the feed. Kabugo Hannington, greetings from Uganda. He's a friend of mine. An amazing,
Cool.
amazing, highly inspirational person helping people with the Parkinson's there.
What time
Really,
is in? I want to know what time is in Uganda now.
I'm going to guess. I'm going to say it's 13 o'clock plus maybe 7, maybe 8 o'clock p.m.
Okay.
We might
Yeah.
find out in a second here. I think he's
Hmm.
around 7 hours ahead. So, speaking of these times that we're in, how are you doing? I know, but I want people to hear Tim DeLongchamp.
Hey,
Tim
Tim.
DeLongchamp. Do you know Tim?
Absolutely.
He says,
Great
"Hey,
friend.
Sergio." Oh,
Great
good man.
friend and customer at 24/7 Drums. Great friend
Oh,
and
man.
a great drummer. He's a really, really good drummer.
Awesome. I tell you, when I come out there, I'm coming to your store, and we're gonna hang, and I'll probably buy stuff. I'm saving my money. I need another drum set. So, yeah. So, I mean, it's COVID. I mean, we're going on a year. March 13th seems to be the date where the plug was pulled on a lot of stuff last year. Every time I talk with somebody about the teaching at a university or whatever, it's around March 13th, including the
Right.
rehab stuff I did at Syracuse University. Last day done. Haven't been back there since. But it doesn't mean we can't go on with things. A lot of these universities have gone virtual and done a really great job of it. I know Berklee's done a great job. So,
Yeah.
and you teach there. So, besides the teaching, and you're welcome to talk about anything you want, my friend, Berklee, teaching there, anything. How you been doing during the pandemic? Because, musicians by and large have been a hit by this somehow. And for some, it's been devastating. But for others, they're finding ways to stay busy. You're busy. And what have you been doing?
True. I've been busy. First of all, March 13th, you're absolutely correct. I remember it was a Saturday night, and I packed my cymbals in the cymbal bag, not knowing that I would have gotten an email a few hours later saying, by the way, starting tomorrow, all gigs have been canceled. I was playing in a place doing about 4 nights a week here in the Boston area. So, but we knew it was coming. I was in Italy in February, actually.
Mm,
And in Italy, in Europe in general, the pandemic hit a few weeks before the United States. So
yeah.
when I finished playing in Switzerland, I got on the plane, and that was like 3 days before the
Whoa.
major air traffic shut down. I remember people with masks and so forth. But
Mhm.
anyway, as far as staying busy, um, I'm sort of lucky because I live in a building. Both Terry and I, my wife is also a drummer. We live in a building, and we have the drum shop slash recording studio, which is where I am now.
Mhm.
And then we live upstairs. So we were,
Oh, cool.
cut from the outside world, but somehow we were able to keep some of our artistic expressions alive by way of having the space, the facilities, the gear. I feel bad for people that in an apartment maybe couldn't play all of a sudden. In fact, I remember there was a surge of um, customers wanting pads,
Mm.
silent cymbals, electronic drums. It
Mm-hmm.
was rough. I tried to stay positive. Berkeley continued remotely, so we skipped spring break.
Mm-hmm.
We were going to have a spring break, but spring break was a technology technology boot camp. Everybody on
Yeah.
meetings trying to convert all our teaching materials,
Mm-hmm.
from the classroom and the whiteboard to PDF and whatnot, and get
Right.
acquainted with all the technology. Luckily, I was already teaching online, so I was on board with that. But needless to say, there was, some learning there to do.
Sure.
I, you know, I stayed as busy as I could. I was already studying at the time, taking some courses online, and when the pandemic hit, the first immediate thought was, um, okay, we're not commuting. How many hours a week normally would I be in the car to go to work?
Mm-hmm.
Not
Right.
spending money in gas.
Mm-hmm.
There's no gigs, so all the hours that normally I would be on the bandstand, I said, this is, either stop and cry or move forward and try to make the best out of this situation. And I
Right.
chose the latter because,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a positive person and I've been lucky to always be surrounded by positive, inspiring people, and I
Yeah.
remember attending Zoom meetings with other fellow artists where was kind of the same sentiment. We let's let's get let's take this opportunity to do things we normally don't have time to do, studying, um, practicing.
Yeah. Right. Right.
Maybe revamping our social media presence, website. The pile of projects that came right on the surface as available possibilities of things for me to do was so overwhelming that I think the first 2, 3 months I was actually working more hours than what I was working before with teaching in person and gigging. So
Right.
all the things that piled up. It's like, okay, well, I'll do it when I have time. It was like, now you have the time.
Mm-hmm.
Now is the time.
It's interesting. I
So,
had a very similar parallel. I mean, I've been working for 2.5 years on a book, and it finally I got it done and released in June. But without a
yeah,
pandemic, not that I wanted to have a pandemic, but I got it done. Plus, there's so many other things I got done. Plus I learned how to go virtual with the sessions I do for rehab. If I didn't do that, well, things would have been different, but it's possible a lot of times. So I tried to look at it like you as a learning curve, like, okay, let's maximize opportunities and still try to help people. And like you said, a whole bunch of projects came about and it was opportunity time. No excuse not to do stuff
yeah,
because I couldn't go anywhere.
yeah. And one thing is that we musicians, I mean, if you watch the Ken Burns jazz documentary,
Mm-hmm.
in the very first episode, at the very core, at the birth of jazz, they talk about how improvisation was really a lifestyle, even before being an art form with the music, which, again, people
Mm-hmm.
were improvising before, but it came as a necessity for people coming to America without speaking the language,
Yeah,
and
really.
without having opportunities, or without having the nice life that they had back home, or just a different environment, having to live all together, sometimes without speaking the language, having to coexist. It was a necessity to improvise on a daily basis. And I think musicians, in general, because of the art form, know how to improvise or learn how to improvise because of the nature of what we do.
Excuse me.
But in life, you know, in life, you got to improvise every minute. And so when the pandemic hit, we all faced new realities and we had to adapt. And
Yeah.
I think so much came out of that. A lot of creativity. I mean, we really saw some creative minds, creative spirits. It wasn't just, okay, we have the technology, I push play and I go live and talk to people, but people came up with all sorts of things. I mean, the flash mobs on the windows, um,
Yeah.
videos of support, everything. I mean, there's been an outpour of community and being together. Like you said, nobody wanted the pandemic. Nobody wants the pandemic, but the expression and the 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 new energy, adapting energy that this pandemic has created, I think it'll stay,
Hmm.
and it just raised the bar to a whole different level as far as what humanity can do when coming together, even if we're far apart. You know, we're not in the same room, but I saw a lot
Yeah.
of coming together, a lot of coming together.
Those are great points. I feel the same way. In fact, I can't see us ever going back to what it was before completely. And that's in many respects. Let's forget about masks and all that for now, because we don't know what's going to happen down the road after the vaccine. But just say that, for example, I used to travel all over the world and teach my workshops, 2-day workshop, Parkinson's, right?
Yeah,
I could do it online. And, I like doing it online. I miss interacting with the humans in person, but it's not absolutely necessary. It's
no,
been highly effective, and it's a great way to maybe cut down costs for everybody. Some people would travel to workshops and they would lose 2 days of work and income, and then they have
yeah,
flight and hotel plus the cost of the workshop was more because it was live and I had expenses. So I mean, you know what? This is kind of cool, man. And I like being home. I do want to
yeah.
get out and do some stuff, but musicians though, I think it's going to be beautiful when we can actually be with others in a situation where we're playing and interacting together, because there's nothing like that, man.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, when it comes to play music together and make those instant decisions
Mm.
faster than the speed of the internet, believe it or
Mhm.
not.
Mhm. Yep.
You know, the fact that we cannot play together without that proper joy and gratification that we get when we play live music, if you think about it, means that our minds are faster than the freaking internet signal,
That's true.
which, you know, it's not as fast as the light, but it's pretty fast. I mean, you're talking about mega and sometimes gigabytes of data going through a wire or Wi-Fi.
Mhm.
Somehow, our minds, hear a B flat, and you decide in that micro moment that you want to hit that cymbal, not that one,
Mhm.
because of the chord that the guitar player might. I mean, that's
Mhm.
pretty powerful. I want to leave that thought there. But as far as, as much as we think that technology's taking over, it's not. Because
Yeah.
our mind still wants to be in the same room and do things together.
Absolutely. You know, I have to say this. I haven't told you this. The first time we spoke, I came off of that time we had together, thinking, okay, it's time. It's time to, like, when the opportunity's right, do a gig, because it's been over 7 years, and I needed the time off. So I want to thank you for the inspiration. I've had other inspiration since then, but you started it. Thank you.
Of course.
I think I'm finally ready to say something with a pair of sticks and 2 feet
Yeah. Yeah.
at some point.
Those are our tools of expressions, some of
Hmm.
those.
Yep. Yep. So, one thing that you had showed me before we went live, you have a camera set up there that's pretty cool. Do you mind showing us a little bit about that? Because this is a great. This
Yes.
I've seen various people doing this. Weckel's doing it, Erskine, Breckline, and countless others. Even Skip. I think Skip has that too.
Yeah.
Oh, and thanks to you, man. I'm doing an every Wednesday drum talk with Skip at 11. We just taught the guy's like unbelievable. Thank you.
The open book, and a thick book too.
Man, I'm telling you, that guy is like the encyclopedia of encyclopedias of music in general.
He
Wow.
is. He,
Wow.
he, he surely is, and I continue to use him. Use, it's not the correct expression here, but he's my resource, the go-to place.
Exactly. I was just thinking that. He's there. He's your friend. He's a resource.
Yes, exactly. So I'm glad you guys are doing that. I missed the one you did before. Unless you did two already, then I'm really behind. But I will check out those. There's never enough skip stories. Some I might have heard, but it doesn't matter. I'll hear them again.
Oh,
It's
there's
that
some great
beautiful.
stuff about Weather Report when he did that Mysterious Traveler, a couple songs on there. And tons of stuff. Hanging out with Tony Williams
I mean,
back in the day with Miles, Train, tons
yeah.
of stuff. Well, we've done four. Tomorrow's number five. So later on, I was thinking of posting a playlist. And I'm going to talk to him. He doesn't even know this yet. So, Skip, sorry, I'm just saying this first. I want to start to bring on some guests. So, Skip and
Yeah.
me and a guest. So, you would
Sure.
be a guest, please.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think it'd be a nice direction to take the conversation.
Yeah.
We'll do
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
alone, but it's cool because the
It.
thing about us, and I'm going off now because I wanted, I originally started off asking you about your camera setup. So, and we'll get to that. But Frank Newbert's watching. Frank, mi hermano de otra madre. He's a great drummer here in Syracuse. I wish I could play like you, man. I know we're supposed to be ourselves, and yes, I am myself, but come on. I think I need lessons. Brian Normoyle, what's up, brother? Alan Robertson. I don't know Alan, but Alan, thanks for being here. Um, we're a special family. I don't think I'm being biased. I think drummers have a thing. We're just naturally seem to be fairly tight. We don't even have to know each other, and we feel the brotherhood.
True.
Yep.
There is more festivals and weekends.
Excuse me.
I mean, the drumming community has always been outnumbering every other instrument as far as having, full weekends of fun, drum festival. There was a time where pretty much every city had festivals. And on top of that, there were places where you wouldn't even know they existed unless there was a drum festival,
Oh wow.
like small communities with one individual that all of a sudden decided, I want to bring the best of the best to my location, and the industry was there behind to support. And most importantly, people would attend to make these things possible. So you can't say the same for guitar, bass, piano. For whatever reason, there's nothing competition here, just a fact. Drummers like to stick together. I'm giving a hint. Maybe that's stick together.
Well, actually, I think it might have been Skip. For those who don't know, if you don't know, Skip Haddon is an icon, a legend in the music world, drumming world, educator world. Oh, as a matter of fact, hey, I want to talk about your book that's coming up too. But first, cameras. But before that, Skip sent me his book. You probably have this one, right?
Yeah,
Third Fusion
I,
Drumming.
I
Yeah.
studied I studied a lot off that book, and at the time it was called "The Beat, the Body, and the Brain," which I think it's how we started the conversation about Skip, because you said something about the brain.
Yeah,
I said, well,
it
you got
was.
to talk. You got to talk to Skip Haddon, and he wrote a book called "The Beat, the Body, and the Brain." So
Yeah,
obviously there was a connecting link there.
which is totally what I do in my business. So he actually only has 3 pages of written stuff, one for the beat, one for the body, one for the brain, instead of a novel of 500 pages. And very succinctly, he talks about the connection between the three, which is very powerful. But he's also the person who told me, and I've known a little bit about this way back history, but this thing about drummers being brothers, brotherhood,
Mm.
sisterhood, brotherhood, total of a community, if you will, may go back to some of the communication way back, some of the chants, some of the celebrations where it was rhythmic, it was a unity, and that the rhythms
Right.
and the what they whatever they were playing on, a log, a drum, a whatever, it's brought unity within
Yeah.
civilizations and communities. And so, you know, maybe, I mean, I'm just surmising, I have really no facts to back this up, it could almost be like a DNA thing. I want to say it is.
I would say I would feel comfortable to say it's very organic. You
Mm-hmm.
know, drumming has been there forever
Mm-hmm.
as a tool of communication. I mean, it still is. You know, when you hear the bells, that's a percussive instrument, and in some villages somewhere, you still hear it at the hour. Well, where my father was born, they have the half hour and the hour. There's two
Oh,
pitches, you know. So if it's 7:30, you're gonna hear seven long tones and a highly pitched shorter tone, and you know it's
oh, cool.
7:30, and might be supper time, and people wherever they were doing, you know, because at the time you know, no watches, maybe no cell phones, definitely not cell phones, but
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it was like, okay, we're done working, supper time, go home at 5 p.m., whatever it was. So you know, communication through rhythm and then dancing. I mean, nothing brings people together more than rhythm because you know, look, you could be at a convention, right, where people are coming from all over the world and they're talking, they got name tags and different nationalities. Once the drummer in the band starts a funk, mean, dance, powerful groove, in
Mm-hmm.
whatever style that might be. I used funk because it's, but once you start talking about playing a dance beat, everybody's going to go on the dance floor, period.
Yeah.
And dance together. I mean, that alone will bring everybody off the tables, boom, in the center, doing the same thing. It's interesting how everybody might move differently, but
Mm-hmm.
you know, to the same pulse, and that's the beauty of it. But it's the pulse that brought them together. So you know,
Absolutely.
very it's very
You know,
organic, if you ask me.
you know Teresa DeMuzio.
Absolutely,
She is
she's
watching.
yeah. Oh,
She's here right now.
hello.
She says drummers are family, connected on many levels. Sending my best
Yeah,
to you, Carl and Sergio. She sends
yeah,
your her best. Yeah. Oh,
and
sorry. I just got a
absolutely.
notification.
No,
Okay. Yeah. Hmm.
I know Teresa very well. She's local to me, and
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I knew her dad. I was fortunate once to come back from a NAM show with her dad sitting next to me, and we had some pleasant
Lenny,
conversation. Lenny, yeah.
man, an icon, man.
Everybody
Oh,
should get that book. If you're listening, if you're watching, or you watch this later, Tales from the Cymbal Bag, it's a must-have book.
yeah.
Period. I mean, that's such a that's like some that should be in every collection. It's
Well,
really something.
it's funny, and we're kind of going organically with the flow of conversation here, folks. Just in case you wonder, but Teresa and we were talking 2 3 weeks ago for quite a while. It was a great conversation just on the phone, and we're exchanging books. By the way, did you get your book yet, Teresa? Because it went out, well, a few days late, but a few days ago, and you should have it really soon. But she showed me that book. I can't wait to read it because I love all these stories and history, and I love it. She was telling me stories about, like, here's something. I think, and correct me please if I'm wrong, Teresa, about your dad and Maynard Ferguson were friends, and when Maynard would come through, he would let your dad play his trumpet, Well, that's kind of a cool story, man. I love that, you know? So just cool. Cool stuff. Yeah, I never met Lenny, but I've certainly listened to some recordings of him and talking interviews. It's really cool. So much history.
Yeah.
So let's talk about real quick. We can come back to anything we want. You got a camera set up that looks real cool, and tell me what you're doing with this.
Okay. So this is another pandemic sort of project that I was able to accomplish because of the extra time being home and the necessity of wiring up. So it's something that I wanted to do for a long time, but I said, well, maybe this is the time. A, there's a need for it. B, I'm more at home. I can
Mm-hmm.
take some courses, which I did. I took a couple of lessons with Jim Toscano. He's also the same person that helped Dave Weckl and Dave Garibaldi. And then I was fortunate to meet a local guy through my shop. He came in as a customer, told me he works in television, and he was also a teacher at Boston University in this particular field of videography and filming and so forth. Anyway, he came in, helped me to install the lights, the cameras, and we came up with this. So I'm gonna switch from camera one, which is the one that I've been using so far. I'm gonna do a fade to black to camera two. Hopefully you see it now. Yeah,
Oh yeah, that's a nice shot. By the way, I have
yeah.
to correct myself. It was Armand Zildjian who played the trumpet when Maynard would give it to him, not Lenny DiMuzio. So I
Okay.
apologize for the misinformation, folks. Thank you for correcting me, Teresa. Armand Zildjian. Okay, so that's a beautiful overhead shot.
Yeah, and then I have this. You know, you got to be careful what socks you're wearing and shoes and so forth. But this is a camera that is to show what happens on the lower part of my station. And
Mhm.
now this particular switcher that I have here is able to host more cameras. But in fact, we tried a four-camera setup. I feel that three was enough for me. I had another camera in front there, but I didn't like that formal television type setup. I feel like here I can talk and touch, point, which is important.
Yeah,
If we're talking
absolutely.
about drums, and I'm also Italian on top of that, so I use my hands a lot. I like to have both my face and my hands in the camera. It makes it a little more expressive for what I do. So that's the camera setup, and they're all GoPros. For
Oh,
now,
nice.
I'm grabbing the audio from there because, as it turns out, it's not bad at all. But I have a Yamaha EAD10, which
Hmm.
could also feed the audio, or I could grab audio from the interfaces on the other side of the studio and bring them in.
Oh,
Um, it's it. Let me just say that this is all a big work in progress. Once you start setting up things like that, you're dealing with lots of wires and connections and buttons to push. So eventually, yeah, there's definitely a learning curve involved. It'll become second nature like everything else.
right.
I mean, we don't
Right.
remember now, but probably when we got the first cell phone, we were completely overwhelmed, even
I
by the
was.
little flip phone. It's like,
Hmm.
whoa,
Big deal. It
exactly.
was.
And
Being
now,
able to
now,
text and stuff. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So let
Exactly.
me ask you this. Just curious, going back to the GoPros. So you have three GoPros,
Yeah.
and you're grabbing the sound from the GoPro.
Yeah, I'm grabbing the sound from the GoPro. I haven't done anything live yet, but I've mocked a couple of things. I'm still at the sound check with the doors closed type stage,
Hmm.
line check before an actual sound check. Um, and
I
and it
love.
was fine, But I think I'm gonna bring in the Yamaha
Hmm.
EAD10 because that's a beautiful one microphone device. If anybody doesn't know what it is, but it's basically one microphone you
We,
install on the
by the
bass
way,
drum.
I'm interrupting. I'm sorry, but we can't see you at the moment. There you
I
are.
apologize.
No problem at all, man.
Didn't I say it's a learning curve and there's
Yeah, I
lots of
did. Yeah.
buttons and whistles?
Oh, it is. Yeah.
So I was on a button called fade to black, which if you don't remember to shut it off, it will keep you on black
I
till
see.
you fade from. Okay. So anyway, I was saying
So
that yeah,
the
the
Yamaha.
Yamaha EAD10, which I believe is what David Garibaldi is using as well, and Skip Haddon and
Hmm.
many other people. With one microphone, you can grab a pretty good quality audio from all of your drums and be able to talk at the same time. Skip and I
Nice.
have been experimenting as far as where you place it because in the original configuration, you just place it here.
Okay.
You hook it on the bass drum, right?
Hmm.
And it's like a sophisticated overhead microphone that will capture everything, even if it's not over, it's under.
Hmm.
But um, what Skip and I have found out, and I think he saw it from John Riley, you could have the microphone somewhere here in between your voice and close to the drums, and it will do a better job at still giving you the audio from the drums, but capturing a little more of your voice.
Okay.
Because when we do these type of presentations or teaching, I think a key element and a factor is the balance between talking and playing. But
Hmm.
both are very, very important. And you don't want to go back and forth, always switching microphones. Ideally, you want to keep it as organic
Hmm.
as possible. You can hear the drums, but you can hear me talking at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. That's nice. So, what is the overhead mic you've got over? Saw. Is that the Yamaha? What
No, right now the Yamaha is in my other on my other setup. I have right
I
now,
saw?
like I said, I'm
Yeah.
only using the audio of the GoPros, but this is when we do recording sessions.
Oh, all right.
My wife has been recording. In fact, the drums are set up for her, right-handed, and I
Okay.
play. I don't know if you saw the podcast I did maybe a week ago. It's a funny story about the reality of being a left-handed drummer and
Mm.
having to adapt and learn how to play right-handed, which
Hmm.
I had to do, and I like it. So sometimes I'll come here, if Terry had sessions for a couple of days, and I don't switch right away. I'll sit down and a little bit practice, then I might switch it. She'll do the same. She might come down on her days, find it lefty, and fool around. It's a beautiful process. But those microphones, those are, some very good overhead microphones, room
Hmm.
microphones to capture the sound. And then I have some Audix SM57, AKG
Great.
D112, standard stuff. And I go into a discrete um, interface, Antelope discrete.
Okay.
Great preamps, super good sound. So I mean,
Hmm.
for streaming, you would not hear the difference. It doesn't matter. But for delivering a recording session, there is a difference between a Focusrite
Hmm.
and that
Oh,
interface.
sure. Yeah.
I can hear it. Certainly, sound engineers, but I can hear it too. The crystal clear, especially the cymbals and in general the tone, but the high frequencies of the cymbals,
Yeah.
come out a lot.
Yeah. You got to have clarity. Well, that's cool. So, I wanted to ask you now. To me, it looks like you're set it up. You're set up in a right-handed setup right now, unless there's a mirror image going on with the video.
No, it's true. I'm right-handed now. I'm
Okay.
set up. Yeah.
Okay. Because once in a while, I don't know what it is. Things get switched around. I'm not sure why,
So
but
yeah.
you are set up right-handed now. Okay. Yep.
Right. So mostly when I play like this, it'd be open hand. This way I can still lead or comp, not lead with my left,
Mm-hmm.
and then really the big deal is the feet. I mean, playing open hand, I got used to it. I don't think it's a big deal because if you have large cymbals, which I like to, I can ride here, I can ride there. The hi-hat, I'd play it in the open position, but if we're talking about playing jazz, especially Latin music, if you have some ostinatos on the bottom that you want to keep, to do that backwards requires, actually not backwards. Let me correct that, because some of my lefty colleagues pointed out we don't play backwards, we play opposite. So
Sure.
play opposite. And but yeah, with the foot part, it might get a little complicated to
Hmm.
do so. It requires really practicing coordination the same way you did in the beginning, where you have to allow time for a certain ostinato to become
Hmm.
sort of a
Yeah.
walking type experience, where you do it without thinking. You're walking, maybe you're walking in samba, ba-bones, 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 ba-bones. Then I'm free on top to do whatever I want, but I got to build that level of coordination and split the bottom with the top so that they can work together.
You know, I didn't know it back in the day, but in the same few months when I was 12, I saw Lenny White with Return to Forever, and then I saw Billy Cobham at a drum clinic. And of course, right-handed setup, left-hand lead with the
Mm-hmm.
ride.
Yeah,
And so I went
and then at the
home.
hi-hat, he was
And I thought
playing
it would
open.
be, yeah, I thought it'd be cool to set up like that. And it just at that age, I thought, well, that looks like economy of motion. Actually, it just seems convenient. So I would practice and practice and practice, and I actually did fairly well. But when it came right down to it, I needed to go right hand lead. Uh, that's where I could do a better job. And actually, since I was a teenager, I don't think I ever did that again. And I never played complete opposite. But I'm going to show you something. You already seen it. Everyone's probably seen it. But if I did set up opposite, it would be good for my brain, right?
Ah,
This whole thing about now I know this is about music therapy in a very non-traditional way, by the way, folks. But what music and crossing the midline of the body, right? Or that's good for the hemisphere. On top of all the stuff from generating rhythm, interacting with musicians, extremely beneficial for brain health. So when you change it up and go opposite, if nothing else, even if you don't go out and do a gig that way, it's good practice for your brain. So there you go. Yep.
Carl,
Hmm.
I have to tell you, because now, remember last time you said something and I said, well, you need to connect with Skip Hatton, and you did.
Hmm.
There's another colleague of mine you need to connect and maybe have as a guest at your show. He teaches in the percussion department at Berklee, but he also teaches in the music therapy department. His name is John Azilla. He's a phenomenal player. He was my teacher for a few semesters. He's probably one of the best brushes players on the planet. In
Writing
fact,
it down.
he presented at PAS on brushes. He has a book and a DVD just on brushes, Berklee Press.
Hmm.
Phenomenal guy. And I know he wrote a book. I'm not sure if it's out yet, but it's he's in the music therapy
Uh,
department. I think he would love to speak to you, and maybe you guys could have an episode and get deeper into that portion of the topic, that conversation.
I
John,
mhm.
Jon Azilla, Hazilla.
HAZI. I really appreciate that, Sergio, because really fascinated by this stuff. I was talking with Rick Latham on Sunday for like an hour, and we were talking about some people we know who have some movement disorders and brain, let's say TBIs, and he was saying, he doesn't know of any books about this yet. I said, I don't either, but it doesn't mean there's not something out there. So let me look. So I'm going to check out if this guy. Plus, I'd love to talk with this gentleman, John. So I really appreciate that a lot because I need to put something together for the people I work with. I already do stuff, but I want to put together a more comprehensive program.
Yeah.
And it'd be
Uh,
an ongrowing thing. It never ends. It's always a journey, you know. By the way, we have a just one hold, whatever you're going to say, please hold 1 second. Chris Spagnuolo says, "Hey Sergio, was there ever a time you, while playing live, noticed something from a book you practice that actually came out? If so, what book influenced you the most in this way?" He also says he thinks you may have a mutual friend, Vito Reza.
wow. Let's continue talking about the giants here. Hey, Chris, I'm going to answer your question, but since you dropped that name, so Vitorezza happens to be from Bari, Italy, where I'm from.
Okay.
He lives in Toronto, Canada. He's a wonderful musician, an amazing drummer, and he also plays bass. He might
Mm.
play other instruments too, but one time at a jam session, we both went on stage at the same time, and I said, no, you play first. We were in Canada at a drum festival. We walked into this club, and we both went on stage, and I said, no, Vito, you play first. I'll wait. He said, no, I'm going to play bass. I said, what do you mean you're going to play bass? So I sat on drums. He sang bass, and it was super, super funky. But this guy, he has his own group, 5 After 4 Burning Fusion Band. He's a
Mm.
great drummer. I mean, Vinny Colaiuta mentioned him in an interview or a few different times as
Mm.
one of his inspirations and influences.
Wow.
If that's good reference for anybody. He's
Yeah,
a great
Vinny's
friend
okay.
with Vinny. They
Vinny's
recorded
okay.
together. Yeah,
I'm just
they
kidding, man. I mean,
recorded.
yeah,
Yeah, they
yeah.
recorded together on Vito's album. There's some duets, Vinny and
Whoa, man.
Vito.
No
And
way.
Vito is also an actor, a professional actor. You can see him on television on main production movies. So
That's cool.
wonderful
Wow.
guy. But to go back to Chris' question, you know, I think that the question would be more which books I studied enough so that stuff at some point would outpour in my playing. Because I don't really think you can control that. I was having a conversation, a lesson actually. I took a lesson with a few days ago with Kenny Werner.
Kenny, I want to ask you about that. I love
Yeah,
that
yeah,
guy,
we could
man.
talk. We could talk about that later.
Okay,
But
yeah, later,
yeah,
yeah.
he's the guy who wrote Effortless Mastery. And he was
Hmm.
telling me, look, when we practice, we were in the don't know. We're really building something new. We're exploring territories that we haven't been before, and it's okay to sound terrible, to sound like a beginner, and explore and build, blah blah blah. But when you play, you just have to forget all of that stuff and just connect with your inner soul without thinking about what you know, but rather let whatever you know come out. So, in other words, you may be on line one from stick control for years,
Hmm.
and then all of a sudden you find yourself playing for 5 minutes the whole thing just with that line with single strokes and go like, wow, my single strokes now are clean.
Hmm.
I know how to put dynamics on those. I know how to lead with the left or lead with the right, move around the drums, and so that even that line becomes a vehicle to express yourself musically. So can't really control when that's going to happen, but I can say that Stick Control was definitely a book that I spent a lot of time, and I still do. Um, there's a great book by Chet Dobie, Funk
Hmm.
Sambas.
Oh, okay. I've
Not,
heard of
not
that.
a very, yeah, it's a great book. He wrote some really good books, and I forgot who got me into that, but I worked on that a lot, and it made my coordination and my musical ideas much better. Advanced funk studies at a very young age, Rick Latham,
Hmm.
great book. Some of those things, like I said, you work on a pattern for a long time, and then maybe only a little figure out of that old page comes out natural in your playing, but that's worth, right? So that's really how it works.
Well, plus you're individualizing it to yourself, I imagine, right? Because we want to be
Yeah,
ourselves and express
I
the way
mean,
we feel it.
totally.
And but these things that we learn, that
Right.
we practice and practice and practice, when it comes out in a musical form, I found that I have to allow it to be Carl doing this. It's like an interpretation of something you learned. But if you didn't learn it, you probably wouldn't be able to play it either that way out of the book or your own way, expression wise. You know what I mean? Does that make any
Yeah,
sense?
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And sometimes, look, it's the same as watching a movie or reading a book. We all read books and we all watched movies. I
Hmm.
watched some movies multiple times, and every now and then I still have the urge of watching it. Do I remember the? I kind of remember the
Me
whole
too.
movie, of course, but there are like some scenes that are part of my life. You know,
Hmm.
if you say, well, okay, what do you remember of Blues Brothers? I'm going to tell you at least 4 or 5 key points.
Hmm.
Those are the ones that touched me. And it's the same for a drum book. So sometimes, I've studied most of it or all of it, but there are a few things that spoke to me at a deeper level. Maybe I came up with my own interpretations, or it
Yeah.
just past that point where it was notion and now it's motion. You got to go
Ah,
from notion to motion and through the emotion. So when it's triggered by the emotion, I think the real motion, because
I'm writing that
the
one
limb,
down. I'm writing it down. That's a real good one.
yeah, because the limbs are stupid if you ask me. Whatever I do, it comes from here. So through my emotion, I triggered emotion. Those are the emotions I'm after. When I close my eyes, zone. I have no idea what sticking I'm playing, which hand is leading.
Hmm.
If I can reach that point where I'm like letting loose, which is not an easy space to get to, that's when I think the real music comes out. When it's too intellectual, when you're thinking about, I need to sound like Jeff Watts, I need to sound like Elvin, or in this song, I'm going to do the Jack DeJohnette, or let me try to be Weckl or Vinny. First of all, you can't be like those guys. And B, you're not at a real sincere place with yourself. But when you just let loose, those influences will still come out, but it's more through the emotions. So emotion, and then you got the motion.
I love that. Really, yeah, you stated that just now in a way that really makes a lot of sense to me. And I'm trying to think of who I was talking with. Mike Melito yesterday. He's a good friend I've known for a long time. A great, great musician, drummer in Rochester, New York. We were talking about some of the boppers, Max, Philly Joe, and people trying to sound like each other. I tried too. I mean, because that's, I think, partially how we learn, but we can't sound like another person. We could maybe get close, but why bother? They already did it. So be yourself. Use the influence, appreciate that. It's got to come out as you. It's got to be an
Right.
individual statement. And it can't come out any other way, but we should allow for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And look, um, making analogies with real language at conversations is always my go-to place.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Victor Wooten, he's the one who really expanded so much on it, and he insists on how we learn the language, how we express ourselves. I mean, these books are loaded with powerful analogies and information.
Mm-hmm.
And so when it comes to that, you don't try to talk like anybody else. Yeah, you might learn from others and steal a joke,
Mm-hmm.
steal some expressions, or you might learn. Oh, okay, I need to be tough here. I need to speak up a little bit if I want to be heard. You're renting a car and something is going wrong. You go like, oh, I remember my uncle. He knew how to get away with getting what he needed done in
Mm-hmm.
that moment. So you might change the tone of your voice and ramp up a little bit or use some specific words, but you're not gonna really. Nobody talks like anybody else. I mean, that's like that's our DNA. Such a
Mm-hmm.
personal thing to do. So is the music. although we all can try, you know, you can try your best Elvin imitation or Gad and whatnot, but you know, there's no way you
No.
can even get close to
Hmm.
what those guys were doing because they were so unique, and probably what they did was really follow their emotions to such a deep level that the reason why we recognize the masters from bar one is because they're really, in my opinion, they are really speaking their own voice and nobody else. So you gotta
Yeah,
try to
I
find
agree.
that maximum freedom because eventually we all have our own voice.
Absolutely.
Not eventually, we do.
We do. You know, I was just thinking the other day, I got a call, but I didn't know who it was from. I just felt like I should pick up the phone. So I did. As soon as I heard the voice on the other end, I knew who it was. Out of 7 billion people, and I've never met this. Well, it was Rick Latham because I've heard him talk so much.
Oh yeah.
I've heard him talk so many times. Hey, Carl. I'm like, Rick? Yeah,
I
yeah.
would.
How you doing?
I think
I had no idea.
I think
You
I would
know?
recognize. Well, I happen to know Rick. You know, we talk on the phone. We when he lived in Italy, we had a special thing going on. Every time I would go to Italy on a clinic tour or plane, we would find a time, whether it was midnight, 2
Hmm.
a.m., to have one beer somewhere. Always. You know, I would go to Milan to his apartment, or we would meet down the street, have a coffee in
Yeah,
between jobs, but we would always make time to do that. So he's a special cat,
he is.
definitely.
What a nice guy, man. And we had never spoken before. Um, but I remember, yeah, he told me he lived in Italy for a while. But I heard him. I like, Rick, yeah, how you doing? But that's amazing, though. Not only that we all have a distinctive voice, literally, but that we can distinguish between how many voices have we do we know that we can tell without seeing the person who it is, even over the phone. So it's fascinating. I have a question from Dave Koenig. And Dave, I hope I said your last name right. What are your thoughts, Sergio, on digital drum sets?
Wow, love that question because I happen to be a collector, a lover, and I consider myself pretty knowledgeable. I've had electronic drums for my first one was in 1989. I bought actually I might have bought a couple of prior versions to that. I believe in 86 or 87 I was getting into some Roland kits that at the time were super fancy,
Mm-hmm.
TD7 and whatnot. But in 1989 I bought a D Drum 2
Mm.
made in Sweden, the first MIDI drum set with pads that I still own. I ended up rebuying it again. I have a couple of those. I'm completely in love with electronic drums, and I'll tell you why. First of all, they offer sounds that don't exist on these drums. So to me,
Yeah.
using electronic drums is not to purely imitate acoustic drums. In fact, I don't go after that. If I want
Mm-hmm.
a great acoustic sound, I'll get acoustic drums. But the electronic drums have this purity. Sometimes they have, samples that have been recorded in the top studios with top microphones and of maybe shells you don't own and don't have. So
Mm-hmm.
I've done sessions lately where I recorded with a digital controller and sent the producer a MIDI track and an audio track. They can replace my sounds if they want.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I have access to a library of sounds that here in my studio with my microphones, no matter how good I tune the drums, how many shells I have, it'd be impossible. So digital drums to me are like what a synthesizer is to an acoustic pianist. They don't bring a keyboard on stage to imitate a piano.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you have to, and there are good keyboards that simulate a piano, just like there are expensive electronic drum sets that are pretty close to an acoustic drum set, but they're not.
Mm-hmm.
an
Mm-hmm.
acoustic drum set. So, but without trying to do that, I think the real advantage is other sounds, practicing 24/7 if you need to. And then the newer ones have so many learning tools on board. You don't have
Yeah.
to find your metronome, plug your
Yeah.
phone.
Right.
You can play along to music. You can have metronome. You can slow down tracks. You can. There are the new Yamahas, for example. I'm a Yamaha EDX endorser, so I use those. And the new ones have 10 different practice or learning tools, I shall say.
Mm-hmm.
Some you can leave bars of silence. Some others will measure how off you are playing a backbeat on two and
Oh,
four,
I
and
had no
give you a
idea.
percentage score at the end of a
So
session.
it's like an assessment.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
that's
incredible.
amazing. Whoa.
An assessment.
Yeah.
So you hear the sample groove, and then you lock into that, and you get a percentage. So it's really, really good.
Wow.
You want to use those to do the things you can't do on these drums. Then I'd say thumbs up. Every drummer should have some electronic toys because it just makes your arsenal and your possibilities to take them to the next level.
Oh, I agree.
Good
I had a
question.
couple of
I
sets.
own I own
Yeah.
about just to wrap it up. I own about 7 modules of different brands and maybe 60 pads
No,
so
that's
that I
great,
can go
man.
different configurations. And I keep trying. I keep trying. There's no perfect solution, but I keep trying, and I can I can spend an entire evening just switching electronic pads with different
Oh,
brains and
well,
fool around with the response and do all this stuff.
with the source sound sources you can tap into through MIDI, which is pretty much infinite, I suppose, is it allows for another form of expression to say things in a way you can't on an acoustic kit. And actually, I found that when I've used electronic drums, and I had a couple different sets quite a while ago. I don't have them anymore. Although one of my best friends, Scott, who's also my dentist, has a beautiful Roland electric kit at his house. I'm known to go over there and mess around because I get ideas from that actually can go back to the acoustic kit and do some stuff on. Of course, not all of it, but it just gives me ideas on
Yeah.
creating and expressing differently.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a good question, David. Thank Teresa says Teresa Demuso. How about some Pollard syndromes? Pollard syndromes. I've heard of those.
That might be some older drums before I got into drumming. Maybe before the Simmons or around at the same time. Don't remember those.
I think I remember them. I think I remember early to mid 80s.
Yeah, so
I think there's a drummer here, Dave. I think Dave Hanlon might have had those. I can't remember.
I started playing in 84, so 83, 84, so I don't remember those. But technology has come a long way. I
Yeah.
think, one thing I want to, just to wrap up about electronic drums, as much as I praise about electronic drums, the two things that I would stress are it's easier for a drummer that knows what real drums are supposed to sound like and feel like, especially feel like,
Yeah.
to get a second drum set being an electronic and find the benefits in it. I would not start a student on electronic for many reasons, but one in particular would be the touch. Electronic drums are very forgiving. You can poorly hit a drum, a pad, and the sample will always be at the same quality and the same. So
Yeah.
you want to learn your touch, your craft, your um, natural ability to control the sounds by way of dynamics, accents, and so forth, where you strike the drum. You need to learn on this and then
Yeah.
consider an accessory electronic drum set, not the other way around. And some brands, by the way, make pads that are great and pretty close or close enough, but some brands actually make products that will destroy one's technique. In
Yeah.
other words, if you get used to play on mesh heads, sorry I have to say it, but that's how I feel. The mesh heads are silent, they're cool, you can play in an apartment, I get that part. But when you transition from the mesh head, the bounce of a mesh head, to the acoustic drums, your technique feels decimated.
Everything
Whatever you
changes.
think you
Yeah.
whatever you think you could do, now all of a sudden you cannot do. You go to a floor tom and you go like, "What's this? I don't even recognize this."
Yeah, yeah,
So but the
yeah.
Yamaha makes silicone pads, not because I love those drums. I could have picked another brand, obviously, but the silicone pads that Yamaha developed were actually developed in conjunction with Dave Weckl and Tommy Aldridge.
Oh.
So we're talking about people that put
Mm-hmm.
uh, put some deep thoughts into it, and they did a wonderful job. I'd play a white silicone Yamaha pad all
Mm-hmm.
the time. The D drum, the old school clavia pads had a metal rim
Mm-hmm.
and a real drum head.
Mm-hmm.
I still use those.
Oh, I
In
remember
fact, I'm going to
those.
use them
Yeah.
tonight for my rehearsal. I use one of those
Oh,
kits every
right.
Tuesday night for my Tuesday night project. Those
That's
are the
cool.
best drums. I mean, you can drop a stick, you're going to hear exactly this.
That's great.
No difference.
Yeah.
No difference.
I had an early set of Simmons pads before they went to the more impact force friendly pads. They were really really hard, like hitting pavement, and you can get injured on that, even if your grip is optimized for it. The impact forces were really high, and I didn't get hurt, but
You're lucky.
I had to watch out. I had to be
Yeah.
careful. Yeah.
So,
Nothing against
it,
Simmons. I loved those. I loved the sounds and all that. But then upgrading to the next set of pads, that was a lot better for my health.
now,
my, you know.
if I may say, since you mentioned the Simmons, if I say something on electronic drums that could be somewhat meaningful or interesting at least, is that I actually got my first professional gig as a drummer because the band leader in that band, who was a drummer, developed tendonitis
Oh,
on a Simmons kit.
oh,
He was
really?
playing on a Simmons kit,
Uh huh.
developed tendonitis, could not play anymore. Luckily, he was a good singer, so he went up front, continued to run the band, needed to hire a drummer. That's how I got my first gig
Wow.
out of tendonitis. Yeah, those pads were nasty. I mean, they were hard plastic. It was like, it was like being on a school desk or something, the
Yeah.
class, which I did, of course. I did that too, but
Well, it was, I really like the electronic stuff too. And the thing about Michael Brecker with the EWI versus the tenor sax or whatever sax, he usually played tenor.
yeah,
Well, although
yeah.
I've seen two YouTubes where he played soprano. But anyways, that was another form of expression. I was just
Definitely.
talking with somebody the other day who worked with him a lot, George Whitty, saying
Yeah.
how he helped him to put together that 600-pound rack of like two refrigerator size things with the Oberheim and all that stuff. You
Yeah.
could tap into
Sure.
that thing, man. And Alan Holdsworth with the Synthax, right? So he got to do
Yeah.
things with that and Future Man, Roy Wooten, with a beat up Synthax tapping into the electronic stuff, another form of expression. And all of them can actually obviously play the acoustic instruments. They're masters. But
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, electric jazz, fusion. I
Hmm.
mean, think about all the stuff that Herbie Hancock and Chick Corea, the late Chick Corea, we
Yeah.
mourn him as we speak,
Oh,
but you know,
yeah.
the sound of the synthesizers really shaped up some of the music they did. I mean, the
Mhm.
Electric Band, look, it was called Electric Band, and Chicky was up front playing that
Yeah. Yeah.
small
This.
keyboard. Yeah, I mean, that was part of the sound of the band. In fact, when I saw the Chicory Electric Band reunion, they were fantastic, no doubt. They are fantastic musicians. It was a great show, but they didn't have some of the gear that they used back in the days,
Mm-hmm.
and the show was different. Not going to
Mm-hmm.
say worse or better, but I remember Weckel having the pads and doing
That's right.
some of those fills in light ears, became a classic
Yeah,
because of those sounds.
that's true. Yep.
Yeah, so you want to use the drums to do that. Speaking of Michael Brecker, there's a great track where it's a combination of electronic and acoustic sets. It's called Tales of Two Rhythms. Every drummer should hear that track.
I've
And
heard
if
of
that's
this.
yeah,
I've heard of this.
it's on Now You See It, Now You Don't. Great album.
Oh, okay, then I have that. I'm not good with
Yeah,
names of songs, but yeah, whoa.
yeah. Tales of Two Rhythms is a track that if Michael Brecker, that's how he heard rhythms, and he did, because that's his song. It's another manifest of his genius and how
Yeah.
far ahead he was. That's on my bucket list. That's a track I want to play by myself. Being
Mm.
able to do both parts by myself, but it may not happen this lifetime. When you hear it, you'll know why. But it's pretty freaky. There's an electronic layer, and then the acoustic drums come in, and the two rhythms are like.
So who's playing on that? Who's the drums?
Jimmy Branley, and forgotten who was the other drummer. Can't tell you right now, but
Yeah, I have that
one is
downstairs. I have to
yeah,
check
yeah,
it
yeah.
out.
One is a programming, yeah,
That's
and the
beautiful.
other ones, yeah.
So if you don't mind, I just want to mention to folks that my mom is watching. Hey mom, how you
Hello,
doing, mom?
Mama.
So you are coming out with a book.
Yes.
Can you talk about that a little bit with us? Because I want to make sure people know about this and they can be ready when it hits, when it drops.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm already on draft 3, so
Okay.
the person who's helping me writing the book, we exchange. I get my finale files, I play them because I want to make sure everything is playable, makes sense. Then I experiment. I've been experimenting with my students for a long time, so we bounce back and forth. I believe in the summer or early fall the book will be out because 90% of the content is there, and now it's just about tweaking the texts
Mm-hmm.
and putting the exercises in a certain order. It's a book about the ghost notes,
Mm-hmm.
and the ghost notes to me are really the details that could make a difference in anyone's playing. It's the ability of bringing some notes up in volume while keeping some down, and
Mm-hmm.
create what in the book I describe as melodic rhythm. Now, melodic rhythm is not so much playing on a pitched instrument. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not talking about vibes, marimba. I'm talking a drum set. But when you play out of any particular pattern, when you start bringing some notes up and keep some other notes down, however you want to look at it, you'll start to hear two rhythms,
Mm-hmm.
the top and the bottom rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
And one, I call it the melody, and the other notes are the fillers, which happen to go into the grid, the subdivision.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, they're not really part of the main melodic motif,
Mm-hmm.
so to speak, but they go and belong to the hi-hat or the ride or the shaker, the kabasa, the subdivision. But then, because of that, you can do the opposite. Also, all of a sudden, one hand might lead, and then you bring up the other hand, and this one goes down and becomes the grid, the subdivision. So you have, again, two tails of the same rhythm in a way, just to paraphrase what Michael Brecker was doing in that song. But so it goes through the formalities of having one ghost note per bar, two ghost notes per bar, combinations, analyzing all the different possibilities. There's transcriptions of iconic grooves where drummers have been heard
Hmm.
playing ghost notes. It also talks about how sometimes you don't need any ghost notes. And in fact, I demonstrate the same groove with and without, not pointing necessarily out that the version with the ghost notes is better because it's not always the case. So sometimes less is more. But being able to play from a technical standpoint, being able to play one note at a very low volume, you sneak it. You're playing 8 notes, but then all of a sudden you hear this 16 note
Hmm.
coming in. That 16 note, believe it or not, changes the shape
Yeah,
and the
totally.
outcome, changes the outcome of the whole groove with one note. So that tells you how important it is.
Well, that's cool. You're
And
going to do that. That you demonstrate with and without, because that can, like you say, that can change everything. The feel.
yeah,
Uh, by the way, speaking of icons, we have Mr. Gary Hobbs is watching. Hey, Gary, what's going on, man? He's a fantastic drummer, educator, musician. Welcome.
pleasure to cyber meet you for now.
Yeah, Gary's. I saw him first. I think I was about 14 with Stan Kenton, the Stan Kenton Orchestra. It's really
I
wonderful.
think,
Thank.
if I'm not mistaken, Peter Erskine was with Stan Kenton at a very young age. Am I correct?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, that's where I met him. He was 18 on his first tour with Stan
Yeah,
Kenton. It was the fall of 1972, and I was 11. He was 18. Our birthdays happened to be the same day. Not
I
that it
was 4.
matters. You were 4. Okay.
In
So
'72, I was 4. Yeah.
there's 7 years between you and me, and 7 years between me and him. Uh, and I think Gary was right after Peter. I think, is that right, Gary? You came in like 75, I believe. Well, there's actually, so I did an interview with Gary the other day, and he talked about the call he got to be in Stan's band. Okay, so we got to go down this path for a minute, Gary. I hope you don't mind. It's a really cool story. Gary, I
Totally.
believe, was in the reserves, and he basically got the call to go with Stan and couldn't go, couldn't get excused. So they tried out this young kid, this guy Peter Erskine, but then Gary ended up going after that. So I'm so glad it worked out because then I got to meet him or to hear him, and now I get to meet him and kind of reminisce about some of that stuff. Because for me, that's like, if mom, if you're still watching, it's like going back in the day and bringing back a lot of memories. So it's really cool. Um, so thanks for joining, Gary. And so this ghost note thing, the first person drummer I remember really visually seeing them do this was Billy Cobham, because he just had that whole thing going on, and then when he didn't do the ghost note, and I didn't know it was called that back then. I went to a clinic and I saw him, and when he didn't do the ghost note, of course he's left hand lead, everything changed. I felt it's like, well, because that's what happens. Ghost notes a lot of times, obviously, they can propel the motion of a song, and you can sort of feel them maybe more than hear them. But when you drop them out, you definitely know they're not there,
Right.
even if you don't know consciously. Like if somebody
Absolutely.
doesn't know what's going on and then it changes, they know something changed, even if they don't know it's a ghost note.
Yeah.
Very cool. I can't
And
wait to
and
get that book.
yeah, the other thing too is that the motions that are involved in playing the drums, which you could compare in, say, the motions that are involved to dance. I mean, think about tap dancing.
Uh,
Tap dancers, you hear those loud clacks.
mhm.
Those spell the beat, the main figure. But all those passing tones that you hear, those are because you're in motion, in groove, and while you might strike in certain parts of the beat, all
Mhm.
those other notes are the passing notes that are actually essential. They have to be there because you can't get from A to B, without all those increments in between. So it's also the mobility of it. It's not just you want to play ghost notes or don't play ghost notes because they add something, but they actually help you to play better and in groove. So even if you don't want to play too many ghost notes and don't get the groove busy, I'm going to demonstrate in the book. There will be video companion where you actually still move in a certain subdivision, whether you hit the drums or not. You can decide not to hit them, but you're air drumming, and maybe only a few notes of a certain fill comes alive. But the other
Mm.
ones are ghosted to a degree where you actually don't even play them, but you're meaning to by way of motion. And if you look at a drummer, like I can think of a few, but first one that comes to mind is Keith Carlock.
Yeah.
He always has these motions where, you don't hear all the notes that he's going for, that he's moving to, but some are on the drums and some others are in his way of moving around the drums. And I think that's what helps his flow. For me, when I
I
hear him,
love to.
I think he's a round drummer. Him and Omar Hakim, for me,
Mm.
they're like round drummers. I mean, there's a lot
Hmm.
of round drummers, but those guys, when I hear them, I just hear this big round sound. And some other drummers, have different shapes. You hear more angles, corners, which is good too. But those guys are always like, Elvin was like that too. Elvin was
Oh,
super, super round.
big time.
So and when I watch those guys play, their level of ghost notes is beyond playing them. Even when they don't play them, you feel them
Yeah.
because of the way they move.
You
Yeah.
know, it's interesting you say that. Now I need to go and check out more Keith Carlock. I seen him with Steely Dan. That's the only situation. 3 different times. But I love to
Yeah,
watch
watch
Keith
him with
play, man. Love
watch
to
him with
watch him.
Wayne Krantz.
Yeah.
He's
I s-
instructional DVD and shows with Wayne
yeah.
Krantz, and you can ask Skip. Skip will tell you all the recordings he's on because he knows it all. But every time I watch Keith playing,
Yeah.
it's just like, wow.
You know, I saw a video recorded a couple of years ago in Denver, or well, somewhere in Colorado, with Wayne and Keith. It might have been Jimmy Haslip on bass. I'm not sure, but I was watching. I'm like, where did this come from?
Uh,
Where did it? It's
by the way,
Keith. It's
I know.
in the quintessential
Yeah, yeah,
Keith
yeah. They
Carlock. But how did he get to be like this? I mean, that's because he's himself. But I'm sorry.
well,
What were you gonna say?
they no, I was gonna say that particular ensemble they're still around and doing great music, but it's a magic formula of it's a special chemistry and balance.
Hmm.
It's also a conceptual thing, I'm sure. Um, you know, Keith Carlock, by the way, he studied with the great Ed Soph, and
Wow.
so many great drummers studied with Ed Soph. So there's no coincidence there. And I watched an instructional video with Ed Soph. I think once I saw him at PAS. He's one of those teachers, where you can tell it comes from that high standard of
Yeah.
conceptual and practical. But I was going to say, no, that there is a magic formula. And here's how I know why. Because I actually played with Wayne Krantz once in
Hmm.
1998 when I was a Berklee student. Wayne came as an artist from the guitar department, within the guitar department. So when those things happen, sometimes they'll hire students to accompany a visiting artist, either faculty or students.
Hmm.
At the time, myself and Tino D'Agostino, who I have a group with, great bass player and composer, he was asked to play bass. I was asked to play drums because at the time we were some of the fusion cats in school. We were playing fusion in ensembles, we were doing our thing, and somehow we got the call to play for Wayne Krantz. So super nervous, excited, nervous both.
Hmm.
We went to Tower Records at the time. There was a store,
I
and we
remember
bought
Tower
all.
out there. Yeah.
Yeah, we bought all the Wayne Krantz albums we could find because we knew who he was. And I think I only had one album, but I'm like, okay, now next week we're playing with this guy, so we better know the music. And so I got the other albums, and so did he, and we listened to all the music and super tough stuff, you know. So the clinic was at 5. I think by 1 p.m. we were going to be there for sound check, quick run through, whatever. So we went backstage. Hi, Wayne. I'm Sergio. I'm Tino. He happens to speak Italian, fluent in Italian. He lived in Italy for years.
Okay.
So we
Cool.
were conversing in Italian, which
Mm-hmm.
broke the ice a little bit. And we asked him. He said, "So what are we playing? We have these albums. We're comfortable. Maybe we could do this. We could do that." He was like, "I'm not telling you anything." We're like,
That's
"Whoa!"
beautiful.
He said, "You'll know why." He said, "You'll see. That's the topic of my presentation. We're not going to talk anything." Okay. Woo! So I don't know if it was good or bad because the pressure of having to play certain songs and certain arrangements was off the chest. But
Yeah,
now we
sure.
don't know. But now we don't know what we're going to play. And the entire presentation was about him not telling us the key nor the feel.
Oh, wow.
Nothing. Zero. He counted off the first song, didn't tell Tina what key it was in, didn't tell me what the feel was. Now, mind, with a good count off, you usually kind of get the vibe, but I'm just gonna say that within few bars, we were on an airplane with no
Mm-hmm.
seat belts on,
That's
with a
beautiful, though.
rocking motion. It was the one of the most incredible learning experiences of my life. And we played for 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And then he stopped, broke it down, and tore it apart. And he was able to get all the topics that he wanted to pass on that event out of the performance, such as too many cliches, don't assume that we're going to the bridge, don't lock in into a 2 bar phrase because maybe I'm phrasing in an 8 bar phrase.
Mm-hmm.
And in this section, I was resolving always, on the end of 3, and you should have jumped on that or do something as a contrast. I mean, the whole thing. So when I say I think they have a magic way of working it out. It's a formula. It's like a group. When those trios or whatever band work magically like that, it's like a group of friends that has inside jokes, or you look at your friend, you look at a third person, and you start laughing without talking.
Mm-hmm.
Only you and your friend know why. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
So
totally.
those guys have a way to, if
Yeah.
Wayne does something, the other cats kind of know what that means. There's a lot of coding like that.
So it's a really test. It's a big test of your ability to listen and respond and react and
Yeah.
play what you feel is best. But what it's like a constantly being tested in a way, but also developing that special chemistry or that special unity,
Yeah.
which you get over time, sometimes faster than others.
Yeah.
That's a good
Yeah.
story, man. That's a real great story. Actually, I like
Yeah.
hearing that because I like that kind of a situation.
I'm going to try to find the tapes. I know that I had them. They might be buried in some boxes, but it'd be fun to watch them now. It's one of those things I wish I knew now what I know. I knew then what I know now, but the learning was then, so I'll take it. And yeah, wisdom, more wisdom through wisdom.
Good one, man. See, I have all these quotes that you wrote. Say I wrote them down last time, and I have them this time. It's great. Notion to motion to motion. Notion to motion is that's a really
Notion
relevant
to notion to motion through emotion.
through emotion. Yes, I put well. That's my hope card for something else I was working on, but emotion. Yeah, that's so relevant. So succinctly describes a lot of things. It's
Yeah,
beautiful.
yeah.
Let's see who. What else? Gaetano Cacavallo. Cacavallo.
Cavallo. I know Gaetano.
Cacavallo. Gaetano Cacavallo says, Mr. Sergio Bellotti, my friend.
Very true.
Thank
Good
you.
to see you here.
We have Gaetano. Bartolo Palma.
Bartolo Palma. Wow. Bartolo Palma, he's part of that scene that I talked about before. My very first gigs in Italy through
Oh,
electronic drums. He was
oh
part.
yeah.
I never played in his band, but he was there at the same time. We were
Hmm.
having breakfast every morning at 6. We would play from 11 to 4
Oh
a.m.
wow.
In different clubs, and then go to the train station to the only cafe that was open that early, and have croissant and
Oh,
cappuccino. So by 5:30, 6 o'clock, we would all show up there, have breakfast, go to bed till 2, 3 p.m. That was Torino,
beautiful.
Italy in the early 90s.
That sounds amazing. I had the best espresso I ever had was in Rome,
Yeah,
and I've
and
only
Bartolo, by
been.
the way, he's a drummer. Bartolo is a drummer. A
Oh,
drummer,
great.
great vocalist, and a drummer. Oh yeah, those are special guys, special
And
people that
Isobel
learn me how to
Kelly.
work.
Isobel Kelly is also with us.
Elizabeth Kelly.
Isobel,
Oh, Isabel Kelly.
Isobel. Yeah, Isobel Kelly.
I'm not,
Hello,
I,
Isobel.
I'm not sure, but
Hello,
hello, of
Jane
course.
Castillo.
Well, we got a good audience today.
Yuri. We do. We do it. This has been a lot of fun, man. I know you have something coming up you have to do. So when you need to go, you
Yeah,
tell me. But is
yeah.
there?
Another 5 minutes and then I'll go. I actually have a dentist appointment, so
That
I
sounds
have
like
to.
fun.
Yeah, of course,
Said said no
of
one
course it
ever,
is.
right? Although I have to tell you, my friend Scott, whenever I post a video of me playing on an electronic kit, that's Scott's kit. I don't know how you do it, Scott, if you see this, but I've been going to you for about 7 years and I've never had Novocaine or any kind of pain. Somehow he's able to do his thing and it never hurts. Oh, well, I'm lucky, right?
Okay,
No, how do you
success
do that,
story.
man? How do you do it? Well, yeah, this has been a blast, man. We'll have to do it again down the road. There's no doubt. Uh,
Yeah,
there's so much to talk about.
this is
There,
fun.
and when you get into talking about things like notion to motion through emotion, I mean that's a 2 hour conversation in and of itself. If you really, concepts, analogies, uh,
Yeah,
ghost notes. I mean, ghost. You're writing a book on ghost notes, and
yeah,
I love that. I love, in fact, if you even ghost a ghost note by not playing it, yet there's kind of a movement towards it, like that Carlock thing and Elvin. I
yeah.
never
It's that
thought that
effort.
it's one of the things that I love is when I learn something that I didn't know that I didn't know. Like there's stuff that I know I don't know. Like I don't know how to play the bass. I don't know how to play the trumpet,
Yeah,
but I didn't know. I never thought about not playing a ghost note while you're playing ghost notes, ghosting a ghost note. That's so cool.
well, yeah, I'm going to talk about that because, and that comes from the movies or any other visual arts. But if you think in a movie, you get the best dialogue in
Mm-hmm.
a movie,
Mm-hmm.
but you black out the screen and you don't
Mm-hmm.
see the facial expression of the two people. You're taking away the whole emotion of it. Even if the conversation might be meaningful and relevant, so the ghost notes, the notes you don't play, but that effort, that motion, that attempted
Yeah.
motion to play it is as valuable as in a conversation when you give a look and you're able to express exactly a disappointment or a joyful or a observational, whatever it is. It's not a spoken word, but it's definitely an emotion,
Mm-hmm.
and it's there. So this is why we all have lots of notions, but when it gets translated by the emotions, then it could be a full motion, 4 notes, or you only play 3, but the fourth one is completely ghosted, but it was there.
Yeah.
Some artists. One time, a guy said, "Well, the canvas is part of the painting." I forgot who said that, but if you think about it, you can put color on a canvas, but the white of the canvas ends up being part of the painting. You
Mm-hmm.
can't take it out. So if you
No.
leave one spot of white,
Mm-hmm.
that becomes part of the painting
Yeah. Yeah.
itself.
That's a great analogy. You know, I'll just say this real quick. I was talking with a friend yesterday, Mike Melito, and we were just talking about, I think this ghost note thing could come into this because I've had this idea since yesterday of, for example, maybe I want to play uh let me just think of a good song. Olio. I want to play Olio.
Mm-hmm.
It's a song. And if for anyone who doesn't know, just on the snare drum and try to make it sound like Olio. And he was talking about all these bird songs and miles and all these things. And I've been thinking about this all day yesterday and today about different songs. I want to, as Elvin would say, he doesn't think the snare drum had ever been fully exploited. At the time of the interview, that somebody asked him, "Has anyone exploited the snare drum?" I don't think so, man. I think we got a lot of work to do there. And then he started playing something too, and I kind of forgot about that. But you know, I can see the effort of some of those busy bebop songs
Oh
is
yeah.
a ghost note
Oh, I mean, there were
heaven.
the
Yeah.
main the language there was the main statements, the
Mm-hmm.
primary statements, and then all the passing tones.
Mm.
But the passing tones were smart. You can take those out and just leave the main statements. But they were really passing tones, and the melodic rhythm was like the sometimes the first note and the last note. Bop to beat up the bass, da da boop, steve da da dip to boop, bop to beat
Yeah.
up the beat up, steve do bop, dip
Da,
bop
da, da,
bip
da,
dee
da, da,
bop.
da. Yeah.
No, so but to go there, yeah, there was so much effort. And if you play that song, at uptown like the beboppers used to do it,
Yeah, man.
you really have to balance and compromise between the important notes and the passing tones. And I think it's a really fascinating world.
As I start to get my hands together a little bit on this really cool practice pad I like, um, folks, you might see some videos coming of melodies of songs played on a snare drum. This is an effort
Of
for me
course.
to see how well I can do dynamically with this. And I don't mean volume dynamic, but that's part of it. But expression
Yeah.
wise, because there's a lot there. Giovanni Pagano, how you doing, man? Oh, I'm forgetting everything recently. I'm gonna contact Michael Beck right after this and your daughter. Oh, I'm telling you, the COVID brain is real. I keep forgetting so many things, especially responding to people. It's been horrible. I apologize, Giovanni. Thanks for coming on and reminding me, even though he didn't remind me, his presence reminded me.
Why don't we, since you said two words that just keep forgetting. All right, that's a great song by Michael McDonald. We should call it
Beautiful.
off and ask everybody to go listen to that song and
That's a good
worship
one.
the work of Jeff Porcaro on that song. That
Oh, beautiful, man.
it's a
Yes.
beautiful song, and that drum track, it's up there in my list as far as grooveology.
I didn't
Wow.
know that. I didn't know that was Jeff on that.
Yeah, it's Jeff. Yeah.
Well, that makes a lot of sense, though, of the
There's a
feel of that
spot.
tune, man.
Yeah, there's a spot where he does some figures on the bass drum that, first of all, try to do them, and you'll go like, okay, whoa, I got a lot of work to do. But
Yeah.
think that he would do it in a recording session while the tape is rolling and just throw them there and be flawless in the pocket in that specific spot. So there's the genius of why he did it, and then the majestic
Mm-hmm.
appeal of how he did it from a technical standpoint. So that means that his notion was so strong that it just went through motions because of his emotion, but he was ready. He's not
Mm-hmm.
thinking about whatever exercise he developed to do those double notes on the bass drum. But
That
the
just
fact that he could do them flawless while the tape is rolling tells you that he was feeling it and he was ready. So he just whoo,
yeah, that guy was one of a kind, man.
he was.
Well, listen, my friend. Always great to talk with you.
Yeah.
One of these
Like,
days, someday I'll get to Boston and we'll hang out. I want to see your store too.
Likewise, and I want to thank you for all you do. Keep it coming, and all the viewers, of course. even after the fact, if you watch this at some other time and you want to splash a comment, I'll get it. I'll read it because I've been tagged on these. So it'd be my pleasure to continue this conversation at a later date if we have to. And hopefully I'll start podcasting real soon. The camera setup is ready. I might
Good.
start going on live, a couple of times a month and just
Good.
continue
Dude.
the sharing. Okay?
Yeah. You're such a great educator too, amongst all other things you're very, very good at. And so, yeah, keep it coming, man.
Thank you.
You got people who want to hear it. So thank you everyone who's watching. Really appreciate you tuning in. This is, as always, really fun to talk with Sergio. And Sergio, thank you, my brother.
Thank you.
Great to see you. Hello to Terry for me, please.
I will. I
All
definitely will.
right. All right, my friend. Thanks again. Good luck at the dentist. Okay.
Pleasure.
All right. I'll be in touch soon.
Okay. Take care. Bye bye.
Take care. Bye bye, folks.